Steve Harvey had seen countless contestants come and go through the Family Feud studios, but nothing could have prepared him for what was about to unfold on that memorable Tuesday afternoon in November 2023. The moment 91-year-old Dolly Retha Thompson shuffled onto the stage with her ornate silver walker, something electric filled the air that even the seasoned host couldn't quite identify. What happened next would not only break records, but would fundamentally challenge everything the show's producers thought they knew about game show contestants and human potential. The Thompson family, from San Antonio, Texas, had traveled over 1,000 miles to participate in what was being billed as a special, multi-generational episode of Family Feud. 5 generations of Thompson women stood proudly on that stage, from 91-year-old Dolly Retha down to her 18-year-old great-great-granddaughter Isabella. The contrast was striking. Young Isabella, with her vibrant purple hair and nose ring, standing beside her ancient matriarch, whose snow-white hair was elegantly pinned in a style that hadn't been fashionable since the 1950s. Nobody in that studio, not even Steve Harvey himself, could have imagined that they were about to witness television history being made by the eldest member of this remarkable family. Dolly Retha Thompson had lived through the Great Depression, World War II, the Civil Rights Movement, the moon landing, the digital revolution, and countless other pivotal moments in American history. Born in 1932 in a small farming community outside San Antonio, she had picked cotton as a child, worked in munitions factories during the war, raised 7 children mostly on her own. After her husband passed away young, and had somehow found time to earn her GED at age 67. But all of these accomplishments would pale in comparison to what she was about to achieve on the Family Feud stage, an achievement so mathematically improbable that the show's statisticians would later struggle to calculate the exact odds. During the family introductions, Dolly Retha had captured everyone's heart with her gentle humor and surprisingly sharp observations. When Steve asked her about her secret to longevity, she had leaned into the microphone with a mischievous grin and said, "Mr. Harvey, I've outlived 3 doctors who told me I wouldn't make it past 70. The secret is to never listen to people who tell you what you can't do." The audience had chuckled warmly, but there was a steel in her voice that suggested she meant every word. Steve had been charmed by her spirit, joking that she reminded him of his own grandmother, but he couldn't shake the concern that the fast-paced nature of the game might be overwhelming for someone of such advanced age. The production team had actually discussed whether special accommodations should be made for Dolly Retha. They had offered her a chair, suggested she could skip the physical challenges of running to the podium, and even proposed having her family members help her with the buzzer. Dolly Retha had politely but firmly declined every single offer. "I didn't come all this way to be treated like I'm fragile," she had told the producers during the pre-show meeting. "I'm 91, not dead. Let me play the game the way it's meant to be played." Her granddaughter, Maria, would later reveal that Dolly Retha had been practicing with a makeshift buzzer at home for months, determined to prove that her reflexes were still intact. The Thompson family's journey to Family Feud had begun nearly 2 years earlier when Isabella, the youngest member of the clan, had submitted an application highlighting their unique 5-generation dynamic. The producers had been immediately intrigued by the idea of having such a wide age range represented, spanning from Dolly Retha, who had been born before television was common in American homes, to Isabella, who had never known a world without smartphones. What the producers didn't know was that Dolly Retha had been the driving force behind the application. Having watched Family Feud religiously for decades and harboring a secret ambition to appear on the show before what she quietly acknowledged might be her limited remaining time. As the game began, the Thompson family held their own against the competing Richardson family, with Dolly Retha contributing several solid answers that showed she was far from out of touch with contemporary culture. When asked to name something people do on their phones, she had quickly buzzed in with "waste time," earning both laughter and the number 3 answer on the board. Her family members exchanged surprised glances. They had expected Grandma Dolly Retha to struggle with modern technology questions, but she seemed to understand human nature regardless of the era. "People have always found ways to waste time," she explained to Steve with a knowing smile. "The tools change, but the behavior doesn't." The first real indication that something extraordinary was happening came during the third round. The question was, name something people lie about on dating profiles. And before anyone else could even process the question, Dolly Retha had hit her buzzer with surprising force. Their age, she declared confidently, and sure enough, it was the number one answer. Steve's eyebrows shot up in surprise, and he couldn't resist asking how a 91-year-old woman knew about dating profiles. Mr. Harvey. Dolly Retha replied with perfect timing. I have 47 grandchildren and great-grandchildren. You think I don't hear them complaining about their dating disasters? I may be old, but I'm not deaf. The studio audience roared with laughter. But more importantly, her family began to realize that Dolly Retha was not just participating, she was competing at a level none of them had anticipated. Round after round, Dolly Retha continued to surprise everyone with her quick reflexes and astute answers. When asked to name something that gets passed around at holiday dinners, she buzzed in with gossip before adding with a wink, food is second. It wasn't on the board, but Steve praised it as the most honest answer he'd ever heard. Her granddaughter, Patricia, later admitted that they had all been worried about Dolly Retha potentially embarrassing herself or the family on national television. Instead, she was carrying them, providing not just comic relief, but genuinely strategic gameplay that kept them competitive throughout the match. The Thompson family ultimately won their game by a comfortable margin, advancing to the fast money round where they would have a chance to win 20-0. The family huddled to decide who would represent them in this crucial phase of the game. Convention would suggest sending the youngest, sharpest members, perhaps Isabella with her quick reflexes, or Patricia with her broad knowledge base. But Dolly Retha spoke up with quiet authority. I want to go second, she said simply. Let Patricia go first, and I'll bring us home. Her family exchanged nervous glances. The second position in Fast Money carried enormous pressure. You had to avoid duplicating any of the first player's answers while still scoring enough points to reach 200. It required quick thinking, broad knowledge, and nerves of steel. Patricia, Dolly Retha's 58-year-old granddaughter, performed admirably in her Fast Money round, scoring a respectable 157 points. This meant Dolly Retha needed just 43 points to secure the 20-0 prize for her family. A seemingly achievable goal that should have taken the pressure off the elderly matriarch. As Steve walked Dolly Retha to the Fast Money podium, he noticed something unusual. While most contestants showed signs of nervousness, as sweaty palms, fidgeting, rapid blinking, Dolly Retha appeared completely serene. She adjusted her hearing aid, gripped her walker with steady hands, and looked at Steve with the kind of calm confidence he'd only seen in professional athletes before a big game. Grandma Dolly Retha, Steve began, using the affectionate title the family had been calling her. Your family needs 43 points to win 20-0. That's not too much pressure, is it? Dolly Retha smiled, and for a moment, Steve could have sworn he saw something almost predatory in her expression. The look of someone who knew something everyone else didn't. Mr. Harvey, she said clearly into the microphone. I've been waiting 91 years for this moment. Pressure is when you're trying to feed 7 kids on a secretary's salary. This is just a game show. The audience applauded her perspective, but Steve noticed her fingers positioning themselves on the podium with the precision of a concert pianist preparing to play. Steve began the Fast Money round, and what transpired over the next 20 seconds would be replayed, analyzed, and discussed in media outlets around the world for months to come. It would become required viewing in several university courses on cognitive aging, and sports psychologists would study the footage to understand performance under pressure. But in that moment, all anyone knew was that something unprecedented was happening right before their eyes. Name a fruit you might find in a fruit salad, Steve read from his card. Watermelon, Dolly Retha answered, without even a microsecond of hesitation. Her voice was clear, confident, and surprisingly strong for someone her age. Steve moved to the next question immediately, as the format demanded. Name something people do when they're nervous. Bite their nails. Dolly Retha responded instantly. her answer overlapping with the end of Steve's question. Name a place where you have to wait in line. DMV, she fired back, the letters rolling off her tongue with practiced ease. Name something that makes a lot of noise. Babies, Dolly Retha answered, a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Name a reason someone might return a gift, Steve concluded. Wrong size, Dolly Retha stated with finality, her tone suggesting she had absolutely no doubt about any of her answers. Steve looked down at his card to tally the points, his expression shifting from professional neutrality to confusion, then to outright disbelief. He looked at the card again, blinked several times, and then looked at Dolly Retha, who stood calmly at the podium, her ancient hands resting peacefully on her walker. The studio audience could sense something momentous was happening. The usual chatter and shifting in seats had stopped completely. Even the production crew, usually busy with their various tasks, had frozen in place, all eyes on Steve Harvey as he processed what he was seeing. Grandma Dolly Retha, Steve began, his voice unusually quiet. I need to tell you something, and I need the audience to understand the significance of what just happened here. He paused, seeming to gather his thoughts. In fast money, you need to match what the survey said. The higher your answer ranks, the more points you get. Most people average between 8 to 15 points per answer, if they do well. The audience leaned forward, sensing the gravity in Steve's tone. Dolly Retha remained perfectly still, but her eyes were sharp and alert, watching Steve with an intensity that belied her advanced age. Your first answer, watermelon, was the number one answer, Steve announced. That's 47 points. The audience gasped. That single answer had already won them the money. But Steve wasn't done. Bite their nails, number one answer, 31 points. DMV, number one answer, 29 points. Babies, number one answer, 44 points. Wrong size, number one answer, 49 points. The studio had gone completely silent. Even the ever-present background music had seemed to fade away. Steve looked directly at Dolly Retha, then at the cameras, then back at his card as if he couldn't quite believe what he was reading. Grandma Dolly Retha, Steve said, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and disbelief. You just scored 200 points. A perfect score. Every single answer you gave was the number one answer. The studio erupted in chaos. People were screaming, crying, jumping out of their seats. The Thompson family had collapsed into a group hug, with several members openly sobbing. But perhaps the most remarkable reaction came from Dolly Retha herself, who simply nodded as if she had expected this outcome all along. Steve Harvey, who had hosted thousands of Family Feud episodes and seen virtually every possible scenario play out on his stage, was visibly shaken. He called for the production team to verify the scores, unable to fully process what had just occurred. Dr. Amanda Richardson, the show's chief statistician, was quickly brought on stage with a laptop and a look of utter bewilderment on her face. Steve, she said, her voice trembling slightly, I've run the numbers 3 times. The probability of randomly selecting 5 number one answers in fast money is approximately 0.00018%. That's about 1 in 555, 0. But when you factor in that Grandma Dolly Retha is 91 years old, with presumed slower cognitive processing and potential cultural knowledge gaps, the probability drops to essentially 0. What we just witnessed is, statistically speaking, impossible. Steve turned back to Dolly Retha, who had been patiently waiting while the verification took place. Grandma Dolly Retha, I have to ask, how did you do this? How did you know exactly what the number one answers would be? Dolly Retha's response would become legendary, quoted in psychology textbooks and motivational speeches for years to come. She straightened up as much as her aged spine would allow, looked directly into the camera, and spoke with the wisdom of nearly a century of living. Mr. Harvey, everyone thinks that because I'm 91, I don't understand the modern world. But here's what they don't realize. Human nature hasn't changed one bit since I was young. People still worry about the same things, want the same things, and think the same way they always have. The decorations are different, but the house is the same." She paused, letting her words sink in. "I've been studying people for 91 years. I've raised 7 children, helped raise 23 grandchildren, and now I'm watching my great-grands and great-great-grands grow up. Every generation thinks they're different, but they're not. They bite their nails when they're nervous, just like my generation did. They complain about waiting at the DMV, just like we complained about waiting at the ration office during the war. Babies have been making noise since the beginning of time, and people have been returning gifts that don't fit for as long as there have been gifts." The studio was mesmerized by her words. Steve Harvey, rarely at a loss for words, stood silent as Dolly Retha continued. "But that's only part of it," she said, a slight smile playing at her lips. "The other part is that I've been preparing for this moment for 15 years. The revelation sent another shockwave through the studio. Dolly Retha explained that she had been watching Family Feud religiously since Steve began hosting, taking detailed notes on every Fast Money round. "I have 17 notebooks at home," she revealed, "filled with every question that's ever been asked and every answer that's ever been given. I studied the patterns, analyzed the responses, and figured out what kinds of answers consistently score the highest." Her great-granddaughter Isabella pulled out her phone and showed Steve a photo she had taken months earlier of Dolly Retha's study area. The image showed a small desk covered in notebooks, charts, and graphs, all meticulously organized and color-coded. It looked like the workspace of a professional researcher, not a 91-year-old great-great-grandmother. "We thought Grandma was just really into the show," Isabella admitted. "We had no idea she was basically getting a PhD in Family Feud." Dolly Retha revealed that she had categorized Fast Money questions into 47 different types and identified the most statistically probable number 1 answers for each category. Food questions almost always have common fruits or pizza as top answers. Noise questions favor babies, cars, or music. Waiting in line is always DMV, post office, or grocery store. "I didn't guess, Mr. Harvey. I calculated." The revelation was stunning. This 91-year-old woman had essentially cracked the code of Fast Money through careful observation and analysis. Dr. Richardson, still on stage with her laptop, was furiously taking notes. "This is unprecedented," she muttered. "She's essentially discovered the algorithm of human consensus through empirical observation. This is doctoral-level research." Steve asked if he could see one of Dolly Retha's notebooks, and Patricia ran to the family's green room to retrieve one they had brought along. When Steve opened it, his jaw dropped. The pages were filled with neat handwriting, statistical analyses, and probability calculations. It was clear that Dolly Retha hadn't just been watching Family Feud. She had been studying it with scientific rigor. "Grandma Dolly Retha," Steve said, holding the notebook like it was a precious artifact, "this is incredible. You've turned game show preparation into a science. Why didn't you tell anyone about this?" Dolly Retha's answer revealed another layer to her remarkable story. "Mr. Harvey, when you're 91 and you tell people you're studying game show patterns and probability statistics, they think you're going senile. It was easier to let them think I was just a sweet old lady who liked watching TV." The audience laughed, but there was a poignant truth to her words that resonated with many. The impact of Dolly Retha's achievement rippled far beyond the Family Feud studio. Within hours of the episode airing, she had become a viral sensation. The hashtag Grandma Dolly Retha trended globally on social media, with millions of people sharing the clip of her perfect Fast Money round. News outlets around the world picked up the story, with headlines like "91-year-old genius breaks game show records" and "the grandmother who outsmarted everyone." But more importantly, Dolly Retha's story sparked a broader conversation about ageism and the untapped potential of elderly individuals. Dr. Michael Chen, a renowned gerontologist from Johns Hopkins, reached out to Dolly Retha, requesting permission to study her cognitive abilities. Mrs. Thompson represents a paradigm shift in how we think about aging and mental capacity. He explained in a widely shared interview, her systematic approach to pattern recognition and her ability to execute under pressure at 91 years old challenges every assumption we have about cognitive decline. Dolly Retha agreed to participate in the study, but only on the condition that the results be used to advocate for better opportunities and respect for elderly individuals. The producers of Family Feud were so impressed by Dolly Retha's achievement that they made an unprecedented decision. They offered her a position as a special consultant to help develop questions for future episodes. In 47 years of Family Feud, we've never seen anyone demonstrate such a deep understanding of our format and the psychology behind it, the executive producer explained. Dolly Retha doesn't just know the game, she understands the human dynamics that make it work. Dolly Retha accepted the position, becoming the oldest consultant in game show history. Her family was profoundly affected by her achievement. Isabella, her great-great-granddaughter, changed her college major from marketing to gerontology, inspired by her grandmother's demonstration of elderly capability. Grandma Dolly Retha showed me that age is just a number, Isabella said in an interview. She's 91 and she's sharper than most people my age. It made me realize how much we underestimate and undervalue our elderly population. Her granddaughter started a nonprofit organization called Wisdom Warriors, dedicated to creating opportunities for elderly individuals to share their knowledge and skills with younger generations. The academic community took notice as well. Several universities requested Dolly Retha's notebooks for study, recognizing them as valuable research into human behavior and pattern recognition. MIT's Department of Brain and Cognitive Sciences offered to digitize her work and create a searchable database for researchers. Mrs. Thompson has essentially conducted a 15-year longitudinal study on consensus decision-making, explained Dr. Sarah Thompson, a cognitive scientist at MIT. Her work has legitimate scientific value beyond just game show strategy. Dolly Retha's methodology became the subject of a Harvard Business School case study on preparation and strategic thinking. Professor James Anderson wrote, Dolly Retha Thompson demonstrates that success isn't about natural talent or luck. It's about preparation, observation, and systematic analysis. Her approach could be applied to everything from market research to political polling. MBA students were required to analyze her notebooks and identify the principles that led to her success. The story took an even more remarkable turn when it was revealed that Dolly Retha had actually predicted her own success. In one of her notebooks, dated 3 years before her appearance on the show, she had written, "Based on my analysis, if I ever get on Family Feud and make it to Fast Money, I have a 73% chance of achieving a perfect score if I can maintain calm and recall my research under pressure." She had even practiced meditation and breathing exercises to ensure she could maintain her composure during the actual event. Steve Harvey, reflecting on the experience weeks later, admitted that Dolly Retha had changed his perspective on aging and capability. "I've been hosting this show for over a decade, and I thought I'd seen everything," he said in an interview. "But Grandma Dolly Retha taught me that I've been underestimating people based on their age. She didn't just play the game. She mastered it in a way that nobody else ever has. And she did it at 91 years old. It's humbling and inspiring at the same time." The psychological impact of Dolly Retha's achievement on elderly individuals across the country was profound. Senior centers reported increased enrollment in continuing education classes, with many elderly individuals citing Dolly Retha as their inspiration. "She showed us that our brains don't have an expiration date," said 85-year-old Margaret Collins from a senior center in Ohio. "If Dolly Retha can memorize game show patterns at 91, I can learn Spanish at 85. The AARP featured Dolly Retha on the cover of their magazine with the headline, "The New Face of Aging, Sharp, Strategic, and Unstoppable." Dolly Retha's perfect score also had a significant impact on how Family Feud and other game shows approached elderly contestants. Producers began actively recruiting older participants, recognizing that age could be an asset rather than a liability. Dolly Retha Thompson showed us that we were missing out on a goldmine of wisdom and capability, explained a producer from another popular game show. We've started specifically looking for elderly contestants who might bring that same level of preparation and life experience to our show. The scientific community's interest in Dolly Retha went beyond just cognitive studies. Neurologists wanted to scan her brain to understand how she had maintained such sharp mental faculties at 91. Dolly Retha agreed, but with characteristic humor, she quipped, "Just don't be surprised if you find a Family Feud logo in there somewhere." The brain scans revealed something remarkable. Dolly Retha's brain showed activity patterns typically seen in individuals decades younger, particularly in areas associated with pattern recognition and memory retrieval. Dr. Rachel Foster, the neurologist who conducted the scans, was amazed by the results. Mrs. Thompson's brain shows minimal age-related deterioration in key cognitive areas, she explained. But what's more interesting is the exceptional development in regions associated with pattern recognition and strategic thinking. It appears that her 15 years of systematic Family Feud analysis actually created new neural pathways and strengthened existing ones. She's literally proof that you can teach an old brain new tricks. The story of Dolly Retha's preparation revealed even more impressive details as her family shared more information. She had created a complex filing system organizing fast money questions by topic, frequency, and demographic patterns. She had identified that certain types of answers were more likely to be number one depending on the time of year the survey was conducted. For instance, she noted that turkey was more likely to be a top answer for food questions in November, while ice cream dominated in summer months. This level of detail astounded researchers who realized she had essentially conducted market research without any formal training. Dolly Retha's achievement led to a documentary titled The Grandmother Who Beat the Odds, which premiered at the Sundance Film Festival to standing ovations. The film followed Dolly Retha's journey from her childhood in Depression-era Texas to her moment of triumph on Family Feud. It revealed that her analytical mind had been evident throughout her life. She had managed her family's finances through economic hardships. By creating detailed budgets and prediction models, she had successfully predicted local election outcomes by analyzing voter patterns, and she had even won several lottery prizes by identifying patterns in number selections, though she was quick to clarify that this was more about psychology than mathematics. The documentary also revealed a touching personal motivation behind Dolly Retha's Family Feud obsession. Her late husband Walter, who had passed away 20 years earlier, had been a huge fan of game shows, but had always been too shy to apply. On his deathbed, he had made Dolly Retha promise that she would one day appear on a game show for both of them. Walter would have been so proud, Dolly Retha said through tears in the documentary. This wasn't just my victory. It was ours. Every notebook entry, every hour of study, I did it thinking of him watching from heaven and cheering me on. The 20-0 prize money, which the Thompson family won thanks to Dolly Retha's perfect score, was donated entirely to a scholarship fund for underprivileged students interested in studying gerontology or cognitive science. Money comes and goes, Dolly Retha explained, but inspiring young people to see the value in aging and the potential of the human mind at any age, that's a legacy worth leaving. The scholarship fund, named the Dolly Retha and Walter Thompson Memorial Scholarship, has since grown through additional donations from people inspired by her story. 6 months after her appearance on Family Feud, Dolly Retha was invited to speak at the United Nations during a special session on aging and human potential. Standing at the podium with her silver walker, she delivered a speech that brought delegates from around the world to their feet. "We live in a world that worships youth and fears aging," she said, her voice strong and clear despite her age. "But I'm here to tell you that every wrinkle represents wisdom. Every gray hair is a lesson learned. And every year added to your life is another opportunity to surprise the world with what you're capable of." She continued, "I didn't break a game show record because I'm special. I broke it because I refused to accept the limitations that society wanted to place on me because of my age. How many potential inventors, artists, scientists, and innovators are we losing because we tell them they're too old to contribute? How much wisdom are we wasting because we assume that age equals irrelevance? My perfect score on Family Feud isn't just about a game show. It's about recognizing that human potential doesn't have an expiration date. The impact of her UN speech was immediate and far-reaching. Several countries announced initiatives to better integrate elderly individuals into their workforce and education systems. Japan, already dealing with an aging population, created the Dolly Retha Initiative, a program that paired elderly individuals with young entrepreneurs to combine wisdom with innovation. The European Union launched a research grant program specifically for scientists over the age of 70, recognizing that experience could lead to breakthrough insights. Back home in San Antonio, Dolly Retha became a local celebrity, but she handled her fame with characteristic grace and humor. She continued her daily routine of watching Family Feud, still taking notes despite having achieved the impossible. When asked why she continued studying the show, she replied, "Well, they haven't invited me back for a second appearance yet. When they do, I want to be ready to break my own record." The comment was vintage Dolly Retha, ambitious, prepared, and completely unbothered by the supposed limitations of her age. The Thompson family dynamics were forever changed by Dolly Retha's achievement. Family gatherings now included game nights, where Dolly Retha would teach her strategic thinking methods to the younger generations. Her grandchildren and great-grandchildren began approaching their own challenges with the same systematic analysis that Dolly Retha had applied to Family Feud. "Grandma taught us that everything has a pattern," explained her grandson Robert. "Whether it's a game show, a business problem, or a life decision, if you observe carefully and analyze systematically, you can find the solution." A year after her Family Feud appearance, Dolly Retha was inducted into the Game Show Hall of Fame, becoming the oldest inductee in its history. During her acceptance speech, she revealed another notebook she had been keeping, this one analyzing acceptance speech patterns at award ceremonies. "I identified that the most memorable speeches include a joke in the first 30 seconds, a personal anecdote in the middle, and an inspirational message at the end," she explained, following her own formula perfectly. The audience laughed, cried, and gave her the longest standing ovation in the ceremony's history. The scientific studies on Dolly Retha's cognitive abilities yielded groundbreaking insights into aging and mental capacity. Researchers discovered that her systematic approach to pattern recognition had actually reversed some age-related cognitive decline. Her brain showed increased gray matter density in areas typically associated with deterioration in elderly individuals. "Mrs. Thompson is rewriting our understanding of neuroplasticity in advanced age," explained Dr. Chen in his published research. "She's proof that the aging brain is far more adaptable and capable than we ever imagined." These findings led to the development of new cognitive training programs for elderly individuals based on Dolly Retha's methods. The Thompson method became a popular approach in senior centers across the country, combining systematic observation, pattern recognition, and strategic analysis to keep elderly minds sharp and engaged. Early studies showed that participants in these programs showed improved memory, faster processing speeds, and better problem-solving abilities. Dolly Retha's influence extended into popular culture as well. She appeared on numerous talk shows, always bringing one of her notebooks and demonstrating her analytical methods. On The Tonight Show, she correctly predicted the outcome of an audience participation game by quickly analyzing the demographic makeup of the crowd. On 60 Minutes, she revealed that she had been analyzing the interview patterns of the show's journalists and correctly predicted 80% of the questions they would ask her. Each appearance further cemented her reputation as a genius who had been hiding in plain sight for 9 decades. Publishers competed fiercely for the rights to Dolly Retha's autobiography, which she insisted on writing herself despite offers of ghostwriters. The resulting book, 91 Years of Paying Attention, became an instant bestseller. But true to form, Dolly Retha had analyzed bestseller patterns before writing it, ensuring it hit all the markers for commercial success while still maintaining her authentic voice. The book revealed even more about her remarkable life, including her experiences as one of the first Hispanic women to work in a San Antonio bank, her fight for equal pay in the 1960s, and her role in organizing community support during various economic crises. The book also detailed her study methods in greater depth, providing readers with practical strategies for improving their own observation and analysis skills. She emphasized that her success wasn't about intelligence, but about patience, consistency, and refusing to accept limitations. "I'm not a genius," she wrote. "I'm just someone who paid attention for 91 years and took good notes. Anyone can do what I did if they're willing to put in the time and ignore the people who say they can't." 3 years after her Family Feud appearance, Dolly Retha received a letter that would bring her story full circle. The letter was from a 95-year-old man named Harold Mitchell from Maine, who had been inspired by her achievement to apply his own analytical skills to Jeopardy! Harold had spent decades studying encyclopedias and had developed a system for predicting Jeopardy! Categories and questions. He had just won 5 consecutive games, becoming the oldest Jeopardy! Champion in history. "Dear Mrs. Thompson," the letter read, "You showed me that it's never too late to surprise the world. Thank you for proving that we old folks still have some tricks up our sleeves." Dolly Retha's response to Harold became the beginning of a beautiful friendship and a movement. Together, they founded the Never Too Old Foundation, dedicated to showcasing the achievements of elderly individuals and fighting ageism in all its forms. The foundation sponsored elderly individuals to pursue their dreams, whether that was appearing on game shows, starting businesses, or going back to school. Within 2 years, the foundation had helped over 10 elderly individuals achieve goals that society had told them were impossible at their age. The foundation's work caught the attention of major corporations, many of which began recruiting elderly consultants and advisors. The Dolly Retha effect, as business magazines called it, led to a significant shift in how companies viewed elderly workers. Instead of seeing them as outdated or slow, companies began recognizing the value of their experience, pattern recognition abilities, and strategic thinking skills developed over decades of observation. Educational institutions also took notice. Several universities created special programs for elderly students, recognizing that their life experience and analytical abilities could contribute significantly to academic research. Dolly Retha herself enrolled in an online statistics course at age 93, not because she needed it, but because she wanted to formally validate the methods she had developed intuitively. She completed the course with the highest grade in the class, with her professor noting that her intuitive understanding of probability was more advanced than many PhD students. The long-term impact of Dolly Retha's achievement on Family Feud itself was substantial. The show's producers completely revised their question selection process, recognizing that Dolly Retha had identified patterns they hadn't even realized existed. They hired a team of data scientists to analyze her notebooks and improve the show's survey methodology. Dolly Retha Thompson didn't just win our game, the executive producer admitted. She made our game better. Her analysis helped us understand our own show in ways we never had before. Steve Harvey, reflecting on Dolly Retha's impact years later, called her appearance the most significant moment in his hosting career. "I've interviewed celebrities, politicians, athletes, you name it," he said. "But Grandma Dolly Retha taught me more about human potential in those few minutes than anyone else ever has. She didn't just achieve the impossible. She showed us that impossible is just a word we use when we don't understand something yet." As Dolly Retha approached her 95th birthday, she showed no signs of slowing down. She had begun analyzing patterns in social media trends, cryptocurrency fluctuations, and even climate data. "There are patterns everywhere," she explained to a reporter. "The universe is basically one big game show, and if you pay attention long enough, you can figure out the rules." Her family had to convince her not to attempt day trading, though her mock portfolio, based on pattern analysis, had outperformed most professional fund managers. The academic papers published about Dolly Retha's cognitive abilities and methods continued to influence fields from psychology to artificial intelligence. Computer scientists studied her pattern recognition techniques to improve machine learning algorithms. Mrs. Thompson's brain essentially functions like an organic neural network that's been training for 91 years, explained a researcher from Google's AI division. Her methods are helping us understand how to make artificial intelligence more intuitive and pattern-aware. The story reached an emotional crescendo when Family Feud announced a special Dolly Retha Thompson Invitational, a tournament featuring the sharpest minds from every generation. Dolly Retha, now 94, would serve as the honorary host alongside Steve Harvey. The tournament would use questions developed using her analytical methods, and the winner would receive the Dolly Retha Thompson Award for Strategic Excellence. When asked if she would participate, Dolly Retha laughed and said, "No, that wouldn't be fair. I wrote half the questions." During the tournament, something remarkable happened. Contestants of all ages began using strategies clearly inspired by Dolly Retha's methods. They had studied her notebooks, which had been partially published online, and applied her pattern recognition techniques to their gameplay. The quality of play was so high that multiple perfect scores were achieved, something that had been virtually impossible before Dolly Retha showed the way. "She didn't just break the game," Steve Harvey observed. "She evolved it. She showed everyone how to play at a higher level." The tournament's youngest contestant, a 16-year-old named Marcus who had memorized all of Dolly Retha's published strategies, made it to the finals. When asked about his preparation, he said, "Mrs. Thompson proved that Family Feud isn't about luck or quick reflexes. It's about understanding human nature and recognizing patterns. She gave us the blueprint. I just followed it." The fact that a teenager could successfully apply methods developed by a 91-year-old proved that wisdom truly transcends generational boundaries. The finale of the tournament became must-see television, drawing the highest ratings in Family Feud history. Dolly Retha, seated in a special honorary chair beside Steve Harvey's podium, provided commentary that was both insightful and hilarious. When one contestant gave a particularly clever answer, she would nod approvingly and make notes in her ever-present notebook. "Still studying?" she explained to Steve. "You never know when they might ask me back for another round." The tournament winner, a 45-year-old teacher named Sandra who had applied Dolly Retha's methods to her own extensive preparation, donated half her winnings to the Never Too Old Foundation. In her victory speech, she said, "Dolly Retha Thompson didn't just teach us how to win at Family Feud. She taught us that every moment of our lives is an opportunity to observe, learn, and grow. She showed us that age is not a barrier but a benefit, that experience is not obsolete but essential." The impact of Dolly Retha's story continued to ripple outward in unexpected ways. Medical schools began including her case in their geriatrics curriculum as an example of successful aging. Business schools used her strategic methods as a case study in preparation and analysis. Psychology departments studied her notebooks to understand pattern recognition and human behavior prediction. She had inadvertently become one of the most studied individuals in multiple academic fields, all because she had decided to take game show preparation seriously at age 76. 5 years after her original appearance, on her 96th birthday, Family Feud surprised Dolly Retha with a special tribute episode. Contestants from the show's history, including several who had achieved perfect scores using her methods, appeared to honor her. Steve Harvey presented her with a Lifetime Achievement Award, the first ever given by a game show to a contestant. But the biggest surprise came when her family revealed they had secretly submitted her notebooks and research to the Library of Congress, which had agreed to preserve them as culturally significant documents. "These notebooks," the Library of Congress representative explained, "represent a unique contribution to American popular culture and social science." Mrs. Thompson's systematic documentation of human consensus behavior over 15 years is an invaluable resource for researchers. But more than that, they're a testament to the power of determination, observation, and the refusal to accept limitations based on age. Dolly Retha's response to this honor was characteristically humble and humorous. "Well, I guess this means I should have been using better handwriting," she quipped, but then she grew serious. "If my notebooks can inspire even one person to ignore the voices that say they're too old, too slow, or too anything to achieve their dreams, then every hour I spent studying was worth it." We tell ourselves so many stories about what we can't do. I just decided to write a different story. The ceremony included video messages from the hundreds of elderly individuals who had been inspired by Dolly Retha to pursue their own seemingly impossible dreams. There was the 88-year-old who had enrolled in law school, the 92-year-old who had started a successful tech company, and the 85-year-old who had become a championship poker player using pattern recognition techniques inspired by Dolly Retha's methods. Each story was a testament to the profound impact one determined individual could have on countless lives. Dr. Chen, who had continued studying Dolly Retha's cognitive abilities, presented his final research findings during the tribute. Mrs. Thompson has fundamentally changed our understanding of cognitive aging, he announced. Her brain scans at 96 show not just maintained function, but continued growth in certain areas. She's proof that the brain can continue developing new capabilities well into the 10th decade of life if properly stimulated and challenged. Medical textbooks are being rewritten because of what we've learned from studying her. The tribute episode also featured a surprise announcement from Family Feud's producers. They were launching the Dolly Retha Thompson Fellowship, a program that would bring one elderly contestant per season to serve as a strategic advisor to other contestants. The first fellow would be Harold Mitchell, Dolly Retha's friend who had conquered Jeopardy. Mrs. Thompson showed us that elderly contestants aren't just participants, they're resources of wisdom and strategic thinking, the executive producer explained. This fellowship ensures that her legacy of valuing elderly contributions continues. As the tribute episode drew to a close, Steve Harvey asked Dolly Retha if she had any final wisdom to share with the audience. She thought for a moment, then spoke with the same clarity and conviction she had displayed years earlier during her perfect fast money round. People spend so much time fearing getting older, she said. They see each birthday as a loss instead of a gain. But every year you live, you add to your database of human experience. Every mistake teaches you a pattern to avoid. Every success shows you a pattern to repeat. By the time you're my age, you've got more data than any computer. The question is, will you use it, or will you let society convince you it's worthless? She continued, I was 76 when I started seriously studying Family Feud. Some people might say that's too late to start something new. But those 15 years of study led to a moment that changed not just my life, but apparently many other lives too. So my advice is simple. Whatever age you are, start something today. Take notes. Look for patterns. Don't let anyone tell you that your best days are behind you. I'm 96, and I'm still taking notes because I'm convinced my best days might still be ahead. The studio audience rose in a thunderous standing ovation that lasted nearly 5 minutes. Many were in tears, including Steve Harvey, who had to compose himself before closing the show. Ladies and gentlemen, he said finally, we've had thousands of families play this game, but no one has taught us more about family, about human potential, and about the power of refusing to accept limitations than Dolly Retha Thompson. She didn't just play Family Feud. She revolutionized it. She didn't just achieve the impossible. She redefined what's possible. In the months following the tribute episode, Dolly Retha's influence continued to grow. Universities offered courses analyzing her methods. Senior centers worldwide implemented programs based on her approach to cognitive engagement. The Thompson method became a recognized term in gerontology, referring to the systematic engagement of elderly individuals in pattern recognition and strategic thinking exercises. Technology companies began developing apps based on her notebooks, creating games and exercises that helped elderly individuals maintain and improve their cognitive abilities. One app, simply called Dolly Retha, became the most downloaded health app for seniors, featuring daily pattern recognition challenges and strategic thinking exercises. Dolly Retha herself consulted on the app's development, insisting that it be challenging enough to actually stimulate cognitive growth rather than just entertaining. The app's success led to a remarkable discovery. Users who consistently engaged with the exercises showed measurable improvements in memory, processing speed, and problem-solving abilities. Several users in their 80s and 90s reported feeling mentally sharper than they had in years. Dolly Retha Thompson didn't just give us an app, one user testified. She gave us proof that our brains are still capable of growing and improving, no matter how old we are. As Dolly Retha approached her 97th birthday, she announced one final project. She would be releasing the complete collection of her notebooks, all 23 of them, in a published format with additional commentary and analysis. The books would include not just her Family Feud research, but also her observations on human behavior, social patterns, and life lessons accumulated over nearly a century of living. Publishers estimated it would be at least a 10-volume set, making it one of the most comprehensive studies of human behavior ever compiled by a single individual. The announcement of the complete notebooks publication created unprecedented interest. Universities pre-ordered copies for their libraries. Research institutions allocated budgets to acquire the complete set. The Smithsonian announced plans to create a special exhibit featuring original pages from her notebooks alongside artifacts from her Family Feud appearance. These notebooks are more than just game show strategy, the Smithsonian curator explained. They're a historical document of American popular culture and human psychology spanning 2 decades, created by someone with 9 decades of life experience to draw upon. Dolly Retha insisted that the books be affordably priced and that a free digital version be made available to anyone over the age of 65. Knowledge shouldn't be expensive, she stated firmly, especially knowledge that might help someone realize they're not too old to matter. The publisher, moved by her conviction, agreed to her terms and announced that all profits from sales to younger readers would fund free distribution to elderly individuals who couldn't afford the books. The preview of the first volume revealed insights that went far beyond game show strategy. Dolly Retha had documented observations about generational differences in communication, the evolution of family dynamics, the patterns of social change, and the constants of human nature that transcend technological and cultural shifts. Sociologists praised it as one of the most valuable first-hand accounts of American social evolution in the 21st century. One particularly poignant section dealt with her observations on how society treats elderly individuals. "We become invisible," she wrote. "Not all at once, but gradually. First, people stop asking our opinions. Then, they stop expecting us to understand new things. Eventually, they stop seeing us as complete humans with dreams, ambitions, and capabilities." My perfect score on Family Feud wasn't just about winning money or setting a record. It was about becoming visible again. About forcing the world to see that we're still here, still capable, still valuable. The book also revealed the depth of her preparation for that fateful Family Feud appearance. She had not only studied the show, but had also practiced her buzzer speed using a homemade device, improved her reaction time through specific exercises, and even studied the acoustic patterns of Steve Harvey's question delivery to anticipate when to buzz in. She had approached it with the dedication of an Olympic athlete preparing for competition, proving that such dedication has no age limit. As word of the notebook's content spread, Dolly Retha received letters from thousands of elderly individuals sharing their own stories of achievement and ambition. Many had been inspired by her to pursue dreams they had abandoned, thinking they were too old. An 89-year-old woman had started painting and just had her first gallery showing. A 93-year-old man had written his first novel and found a publisher. An 87-year-old couple had started a YouTube channel teaching cooking and had gained millions of followers. Each story reinforced Dolly Retha's message that potential doesn't diminish with age. The impact on popular culture was equally significant. Television shows began actively seeking elderly contestants and consultants. The phrase, "pulling a Dolly Retha," entered common usage, meaning to exceed all expectations and prove doubters wrong. Marketing companies started recognizing the purchasing power and influence of elderly consumers, leading to more inclusive advertising and product development. The Dolly Retha effect had transformed from a business term into a social movement. On her 97th birthday, Dolly Retha received perhaps the most meaningful recognition of all. The United Nations declared her birthday International Day of Ageless Achievement, a day dedicated to celebrating the accomplishments of elderly individuals and fighting ageism worldwide. Dolly Retha appeared via video link at UN headquarters, still sharp and witty, despite approaching her century mark. "I never thought a game show appearance would lead to all this," she admitted. "But I guess that's the point. You never know what might happen when you refuse to act your age." During her UN address, she announced one more surprise. She had been secretly working with a team of researchers to develop a standardized test for pattern recognition and strategic thinking that could be used to identify cognitive strengths in elderly individuals. The Thompson assessment would help identify elderly people whose cognitive abilities remained strong or had even improved with age, potentially revolutionizing how society evaluates and utilizes the talents of its oldest members. "For too long, we've assumed that aging means decline," she explained. "But what if we've been measuring the wrong things? What if the speed of recall matters less than the depth of pattern recognition? What if quick reflexes matter less than strategic thinking developed over decades?" This assessment will help us identify the hidden geniuses among our elderly population. The people who, like me, have been dismissed as past their prime, when they might actually be at their peak. The assessment's pilot program yielded stunning results. Hundreds of elderly individuals who had been written off as declining showed exceptional abilities in pattern recognition, strategic planning, and complex problem-solving. Companies began using the assessment to identify elderly consultants. Universities used it to find elderly research partners. The tool Dolly Retha had developed was reshaping how society evaluated cognitive ability across all ages. As the year progressed, Dolly Retha's health began to show signs of her advanced age, yet her mind remained as sharp as ever. She continued taking notes on Family Feud, continued analyzing patterns, and continued mentoring elderly individuals who reached out to her for advice. When asked if she was afraid of the inevitable, she responded with characteristic wisdom. "I've been observing life for 97 years. I've seen enough patterns to know that endings are just beginnings we don't understand yet. Besides, I've got at least 3 more notebooks to fill before I even consider slowing down." The announcement that Family Feud would be creating a permanent Dolly Retha Thompson Award for exceptional strategic play ensured that her name would be part of the show forever. The award would be given annually to the contestant who best demonstrated the kind of preparation, pattern recognition, and strategic thinking that Dolly Retha had exemplified. The first recipient was a 78-year-old former teacher who had studied Dolly Retha's methods and achieved the second highest fast money score in the show's history. Steve Harvey, presenting the award, became emotional as he spoke about Dolly Retha's impact. "In all my years of television, I've never met anyone who changed my perspective more than Grandma Dolly Retha. She didn't just break a record. She broke barriers. She didn't just win a game. She won respect for an entire generation of people who society had written off. Every time I host this show now, I think about her sitting at home, taking notes, seeing patterns the rest of us miss. She made me a better host because she made me see contestants differently. Age isn't a weakness. It's a superpower if you know how to use it." The final chapter of Dolly Retha's public story came when she announced that she had completed her analysis of Family Feud and was moving on to studying other game shows. At 97, she was beginning a systematic analysis of Wheel of Fortune, The Price is Right, and Jeopardy! "I figure I've got a few good years left," she said with a grin. "Might as well see if I can crack a few more codes. Besides, Harold and I have a bet about who can figure out The Price is Right's pricing patterns first." Her announcement sparked a wave of elderly individuals taking up similar projects. Senior centers began forming game show study groups where elderly individuals would collectively analyze show patterns and strategies. These groups became social phenomena, combining intellectual stimulation with social interaction. And studies showed participants experienced improved cognitive function and reduced rates of depression. The completed publication of Dolly Retha's notebooks became one of the best-selling nonfiction works of the decade. Academic institutions around the world incorporated them into their curricula. The notebooks were translated into dozens of languages, spreading her methods and philosophy globally. In Japan, they became required reading in some universities. In Sweden, they influenced policy changes regarding elderly employment. In Brazil, they sparked a movement of elderly entrepreneurs who used pattern recognition to identify business opportunities. As this remarkable story draws to a close, it's important to note that Dolly Retha Thompson's legacy extends far beyond a perfect fast money score, or even the hundreds of elderly individuals she directly inspired. She fundamentally changed how humanity thinks about aging, potential, and the value of accumulated wisdom. She proved that the human brain doesn't have an expiration date, that potential doesn't diminish with age, and that sometimes the most extraordinary achievements come from the most unexpected sources. Her story continues to inspire new research into cognitive aging, new approaches to elderly care, and new respect for the capabilities of older individuals. Universities have established research centers dedicated to studying her methods. Governments have implemented policies based on her demonstration of elderly capability. Businesses have restructured their approaches to leverage the pattern recognition abilities of older workers. The ripples from that single perfect fast money round continue to spread, touching lives in ways that no one could have predicted. Dolly Retha Thompson, at 97 years old, remains sharp, engaged, and constantly learning. She still watches Family Feud every day, still takes notes, and still believes that her best insights might be yet to come. When asked what advice she would give to anyone who thinks they're too old to achieve something remarkable, she offers this: "I was 91 when I proved everyone wrong. That means I had 91 years of people telling me what I couldn't do. The secret isn't to stop hearing those voices, it's to take notes on them, find the pattern in their doubts, and then do exactly what they say is impossible. Because impossible is just another pattern waiting to be broken." Her family reports that she's already begun analyzing the patterns in streaming service algorithms, convinced that she can predict what shows will become popular based on historical viewing patterns and human behavioral constants. Grandma says Netflix is just Family Feud with TV shows instead of survey questions. Her great-great-granddaughter Isabella laughs, and knowing her, she's probably right. The story of Dolly Retha Thompson serves as a powerful reminder that human potential has no expiration date. Every day, in senior centers and nursing homes around the world, there are individuals with decades of experience, pattern recognition abilities, and untapped potential. Dolly Retha's achievement on Family Feud wasn't just a game show victory. It was a call to action for society to recognize and utilize the vast reservoir of wisdom and capability that exists in our elderly population. As Steve Harvey said in a recent interview, Dolly Retha Thompson didn't just score 200 points in fast money. She scored a victory for everyone who's ever been told they're too old, too slow, or too anything to achieve their dreams. She reminded us that wisdom beats youth, preparation beats talent, and that sometimes the person who seems least likely to succeed is exactly the person who will redefine what success means. The Thompson family continues to share Dolly Retha's story, not for fame or recognition, but because they've seen firsthand how it transforms lives. Every week, we get letters from elderly people who say Grandma's story gave them the courage to try something new. Patricia shares, "That's her real legacy, not the perfect score, not the records, but the lives she's changed by proving that it's never too late to surprise the world." And so, the story of the 91-year-old grandmother who silenced Steve Harvey and the audience with a perfect score continues to inspire, educate, and transform lives around the world. It stands as proof that age is not a barrier but a benefit, that experience is not outdated but essential, and that sometimes the most extraordinary achievements come from the people society least expects to achieve them. Dolly Retha Thompson didn't just play Family Feud. She revolutionized our understanding of human potential and proved that at any age, with enough preparation and determination, the impossible becomes possible.